Welcome to Navigating the Customer Experience. Want to improve your organization's customer service? Looking for insider tips to knock your customer socks off? Then you're in the right place. Here's your host, Yannick Grant.
Welcome to Navigating the Customer Experience. On today's episode, our guest is Alan Versteeg, an engineer turned sales management expert. Initially approached the sales world with skepticism, but soon turned it into a thriving career by applying the engineering principles of cause and effect to sales and sales management. This success led him to co-founding Growth Matters, where Alan and his team have developed over 2,000 sales managers across 45 plus countries and diverse industries. Known for his candid and light-hearted approach, Alan's passion for the sales profession shines through in his insightful talks, leaving audiences engaged with his wisdom, expertise, and memorable one-liners. So without further delay, sit back, plug your earphones in, and let's jump right into this conversation with Alan. Welcome, Alan.
Welcome. Thanks for having me, Nick.
Perfect. Now, could you start by sharing with our listeners a little bit about your journey, how it is that you got from where you were to where you are today?
I started as an electronic engineer. It wasn't my fault. I grew up watching Airwolf, Knight Rider, and MacGyver, so I thought that's what I'd be doing. Unfortunately, I lost my dad when I was quite young. I was about 12 years old, but he was an engineer, so I thought that'd be a good thing to do. But I was doing it for about 3 years after graduating, and I read a book called You're Born an Original, Don't Die a Copy by John Mason. And it said if you passionately hate what you're doing for more than 2 weeks, you need to stop. And I'd been doing it for 2 years. And a friend of mine suggested I go into sales, which I then tried. And please, if your listeners don't drop off now, but I got asked to leave my first 4 sales jobs. But it was frustrating. As an engineer, I believed in cause and effect. I believe that there's things you do that get you certain outcomes. I was doing everything they told me to do, but I couldn't find a way to get through. I'd be good at my product, good at what I was, passionate to what I was doing, but I wasn't able to succeed. And then I worked under a manager who said to me, Alan, is sales a job or a profession? So I knew the right answer. The right answer was, it's a profession.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, well, how hard did you study for this profession? And then the penny dropped. And from then on out, being a passionate reader, 50 to 60 books a year, generally related to psychology, self-development, and sales. Over time, realized that the big change in sales is sales management. And that's a short view of my journey to where I was and how I got here.
All right. Now, you deal with a lot of sales professionals, and I can imagine it starts with their mindset. Can you share with us maybe 2 overarching themes that you try to help sales professionals master in terms of their mindset to get them to where you need them to be in order to master their sales?
Yeah, it's a great question. And it speaks to the tone of your podcast. So the first mindset they have to own is that selling won't help, but helping will sell. That the sale is the reward for an intent to create value. And that's the starting point. When we realize that we are service orientated, that we're there to drive value into the client's business or life, that there's something specifically we're trying to do, that we're truthfully customer centric. It's not just a word. And we realize that selling won't help, but helping will sell. You'll find that salespeople do really well. There's a wonderful book called Selling with Noble Purpose, and it shows the research behind the top performing sales professionals globally sell with that noble purpose, with that idea to serve. So that's definitely one of them. The second one is probably an extension. I said to sales professionals, if you believe in the product you sell and you believe it can add value to the person you're serving, then it would be borderline negligent to avoid offering them that value. Many salespeople, specifically today, are fearful of cold calling or proactive sales calling or reaching out or picking up a phone or speaking to someone. And they take on a very much non-human sales approach, as opposed to going, I believe with certainty and conviction that what I have to offer will make their lives or their business easier. And I'm here to help, and helping will sell. So I'm going to depart from that point. And what you find is when they depart from that point, the skills, the body language, all the rest that start to develop quite naturally. But often we avoid that. We try to train the skill, but we avoid the mindset.
All right, perfect. So once you tackle their mindset now, right? No, you have to ensure that what they're selling, as you mentioned before, is actually helping the customer and adding value to the customer's life. What are some barriers that you believe a lot of salespeople face? Why it is you believe they're not successful?
I think the big barrier, specifically in professional selling, is conviction of the value proposition.
Mm-hmm.
And before that is clarity. And I'll give you a couple of examples. When I speak to business leaders, they often say to me, you know what, Al, the challenge with our sales teams are they just don't understand our value proposition. And I say, okay, great. What is your value proposition? And they struggle to articulate it. Now, if you think about this, why is it that entrepreneurs can sell quite effectively without ever having been trained in that skill? And the reality is they have clarity and conviction of their value proposition. I think with many sales professionals, we're teaching them the product, we're not teaching them the impact it has on the customer's life. Once we buy into the impact, once we have that conviction, selling is a natural part of how we are as humans. Dan Pink wrote that book, To Sell is Human. And my example is we have a brand over here. It's called Woolworths. It's a high quality brand, high quality food brand. And if you say to anyone, but why are you shopping at Woolworths? They're so expensive. They dive into a defense. Without being paid by this company, they will sell very hard the value of doing that. The same could be said for someone who's an Apple phone fan, and I can continue. Once we have conviction of something, the ability and need to persuade is actually quite natural. So I think what's missing from an individual's perspective is that conviction of the mindset. From a corporate, it's the fact that we speak about customer centricity, but none of our measurement metrics or meetings actually align to that.
No, I found that in a lot of organizations, they're heavily sales driven, right? I find it as a customer service trainer when companies hire me to come in and train their team, especially the leadership teams in customer service or even customer experience design or customer journey mapping. There's a lot of emphasis that I hear them talking that they have these exorbitant sales targets to meet on a month to month basis. And with these targets that they have to meet, they don't have as much time to give to customer centricity or to give to the experience because it's all about meeting the target. How do you strike that balance as a salesperson? I mean, what would be your recommendation?
Yeah, there'd be two components. The first would be at an organizational lens, speaking to what you're saying. Um, I think organizations have forgotten that when you take care of the customers, the number takes care of itself. So we are so focused on the month, on the quarter, on the year, we're not focused on the value. And that's a shift that needs to happen. But practically, the way that shift happens is in the account planning process. When we start treating our customers and accounts and saying, what is the value we're delivering? Many companies go, what more can we sell them? What's the white space we can sell into? What does that look like? And that's the big organizational. From a salesperson's perspective, the only thing you can do is you need to figure out how to allocate your effort. And the way I say that is you have to treat everyone equally, but handle them differently. You have to segment your customers. Otherwise, you can't take care of the ones that need to be taken care of, and your competitor is going to snatch them up. And in any sales business I've ever worked with, if you lose, and it's generally about 10%, if you lose about 10% of your customers, you lose about 90% of your revenue.
Mm-hmm.
But you're so right. Organizations are just focused, what's the next sale? What's the next sale? What's the next sale? And what happens is we're putting 2 barrels of hay on the truck and 3 barrels of hay are falling off the truck because we're not focused on the customer service. And we almost see it as something separate, and it's not. The way I articulate this is there's a thing called the value gap. It's the gap between what customers expect and what they experience. And it is everybody's job in the organization to close that gap. It's not, hey, sales, go set the expectation. Hey, service, go and deliver against that expectation. It's an organizational mindset that we exist to close the gap between the customers expect and what they experience. And I think that leadership needs to start realizing that take care of customers, the numbers take care of themselves. And that talking to a spreadsheet or talking to a CRM system or talking to data doesn't change people's behavior. So leadership needs to take a different perspective on this and going, what is it we do now that lays the soil and the seeds for the numbers we need?
All right. Thank you so much for sharing. Now, Alan, could you also share with our listeners what's the one online resource, tool, website, or application that you absolutely can't live without in your business?
Right now, ChatGPT. I think that we are negating its value in sales if we're using it incorrectly. So let me give you a context. As salespeople, we need to be creative and optimistic, and we're not fans of admin. So the good news for sales professionals is a lot of our admin is going to be replaced by technology, but that's going to leave a lot of sales professionals wanting because what do you do with the time that you used to spend putting your data? But I really leverage the tool to shorten my learning curve, understanding a customer, understanding what the challenges are, understanding key things. It's a tool to summarize. It doesn't replace me, as it shouldn't. It enhances me. And I was listening to one of your earlier podcasts. We talk about the human to human connection,
Hmm.
and there's this thing now where we talk about human to human selling, and I'm like, well, if you think human to human selling is new, then you haven't been around for millennia because that's what it is. It's a human to human task enhanced by technology. But right now, if I talk about probably 60 to 70% of my time is given back to me because I know how to leverage ChatGPT.
Yeah, amazing. All right, can you also share with our listeners maybe two books that you've read? It could be a book that you read recently or even one that you read a very long time ago, but it still has had a great impact on you.
Wow, that's a tough question with all the books I read, but I'm going to give you one that I always recommend. The first one's called The Slight Edge by Jeff Olson. And the premise of the book is that simple disciplines practiced consistently over time lead to a life of greatness, and simple errors in judgment made consistently over time lead to a life of blame.
Mm-hmm.
There's no Hollywood moment, there's not one big movement, they're just simple disciplines. You look at any leader, any sports hero, any person who succeeded in their profession, they practice the disciplines. So that's definitely one that guides my life. And then the other one is the book called The One Thing, and it's really about forgetting this construct of work life balance and finding out what's the one thing I can do such that by doing everything else is easier or unnecessary. And it talks about this work life counterbalance and how you just keep the things that matter, you don't make them extreme fluctuations. And the things that don't matter can be extreme. You can be heavily buried in a work project for 3 months, but during that time, don't forget your health, your family time, the things that matter. Just tone it down a bit, not all the way down. Those are two books I'd say personally really drove me. As a business professional, recently read 10x is easier than 2x. Wonderful resource for anyone that's listening that is a entrepreneur or business owner. 10x is easier than 2x.
All right, thank you so much for sharing. We'll definitely have the resources that you've provided from those books in the show notes of this episode that our listeners could surely tap into that awesome content. Now, Alan, could you also share with us what's the one thing that's going on in your life right now that you are really excited about? Either something you're working on to develop yourself or your people.
So I've recently moved to a smaller coastal town. So that's been really good for me personally. But the big thing happening for me business wise is there's a very large global brand that we've managed to secure. Um, that's 10xing our business, which is a plan we had based on that book that I've read. And starting to see how that effort, energy, and focus is paying off is really rewarding. When you read a lot of books, you can get sometimes caught up in the story and not in the action. And what's really great to see and a proud moment for our business is now really starting to take on some recognized global brands who are looking at, effectively three guys from South Africa and saying, we want to partner with you to do this. So it's a proud moment. It's come, your overnight success is the longest night of your life. But really, what it's been powerful is seeing the practices that we've put in place now starting to bear fruit. And when you say take care of the customers, the number takes care of itself. It's actually quite prolific. How, and I mean, this. I'm preaching to the converted, but when you understand that the only thing that matters is how customers experience you, then everything else becomes a lot easier.
Mm-hmm.
Because our ability to grow is because we just have a track record where, we got you phone a customer and they love what we've done with them. And that doesn't mean it's easy to scale. It's still hard to scale. But I think that'd be the big thing right now is seeing how by applying certain principles, you can stretch your own mindset, stretch your own goals, stretch your own vision for your business, and really start to play where you always believed you can.
All right, perfect. Thank you so much for sharing. Now, Alan, our listeners would have tapped into this episode and they're quite intrigued with you and your journey, and they would like to follow you online. Where's the best place that they can find you online?
The best place where I publish all the time is LinkedIn. So my name is very unique. So if you just type in Alan Versteeg, it'll be on there. LinkedIn is the best resource. That's where you'll find, any of other podcasts I've done or content I'm creating, articles that I'm writing, white papers that I'm publishing. Everything will be there.
All right. Thank you again. Just want to ask you as well, Alan, in your experience in the journey of your lifetime, if you have a quote or a saying that during times of adversity or challenge, if for any reason you got derailed, do you have a quote or a saying that once repeated or just remembered, it helps to get you back on track?
Yeah, I've quite a few, but one of my favorites because of its depth is how you do anything is how you do everything. And the reason that's so important is it's easy to be in a good mood when times are good. It's easy to be of a good character when times are good. It's easy to be a pleasant person when times are good. But when things are challenging, that's where your character gets tested. And how you do anything is how you do everything. And I say to leaders all the time, the best, Richard Branson said it so well. The best way to take care of your customers is to take care of your employees.
Mm-hmm.
Because
So
the
true.
minute you take care of the employees, the customers feel that.
Yeah.
And it's because how you do anything is how you do everything. You can't be polite to your customers, but rude to the person waiting at you at a restaurant or trying to help you at the airport. Airports are so fascinating because everyone complains to people who are really just trying to get you somewhere safely and within strict guidelines. But people, they don't treat people well. And I believe that how you do anything is how you do everything. And in challenging times, that tests you. Can I remain of good spirit? Can I remain in a good demeanor? Can I remain patient as a person when things are difficult? Can I, maintain my faith? Because it's easy to maintain my faith when things are great. It's
Mm-hmm.
difficult when you're in the lion's den. And that's for me a quote that just guides me and says, just remember, this will shape your character. This is a test of your character. And a bad day for the ego is a beautiful day for the soul. It's time to grow.
Mm-hmm. I love it. All right. Awesome. Well, thank you, Alan, so much for hopping on this podcast and sharing all of these great insights with us. It was very insightful to understand your perspective as it relates to sales and customer service and to reinforce a lot of what we do talk about on this podcast, navigating the customer experience as it relates to ensuring that the customer experience is not just managed effectively on the outside, but it needs to start on the inside. And you said it beautifully when you gave Richard Branson's quote that, if you take care of your people on the inside, then they'll definitely take care of your customers on the outside. So I think it was a really great conversation, and I just really wanted to extend our deepest gratitude for your, participation in our conversation today.
Yeah, thank you so much. And an extended thanks to you and the work you're doing in this space. One of the things that I definitely pick up in everything you share, the customer experience is not a thing, it's a culture.
Yeah.
And when we actually realize this, everything becomes easier because it seems obvious. It does take a lot of work, as you know, it's a profession. But when companies understand it, the only reason we exist is to create value for customers, then the customer experience is the report card. So thank
Yeah.
you so much for the work you're doing in this space and for having me on your show.
Awesome. Thank you to Ellen. I just want to remind our listeners you can follow us on X at Navigating CX and feel free to join our private Facebook group, Navigating the Customer Experience Community. Until next time, I'm your host, Yannick Grant. We also have a new book available on Amazon, The ABCs of a Fantastic Customer Experience. It's available in ebook and paperback. So if you want to increase revenue in your organization, build a stronger service culture, and create employees or develop employees who are really mastering service delivery in your business, you need to grab a copy of this book. Until next time, I'm your host, Yannick Grant.
Thanks for listening. For more awesome resources to take your customer service game to another level, head over to navigatingthecustomerexperience.com. See you next time.